Good.
Don't look good.
Mm-mm.
Well, it is what it is.
It sure is. What's up? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to you all, wherever you guys are tuning in from on the map. Jordan, Jesus.
Drop my phone. Sorry.
Well. We are back here with another live Q&A. We were supposed to have Sukanth on, founder and CEO of Turns, but I guess he doesn't like us. Or
It's
maybe it's
probably
you.
just
I'm not the
me.
problem.
It's probably me.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna blame it on you. But that is nothing to worry about because we are still gonna answer your questions, laundromat, laundry industry, pickup and delivery related. So please go ahead and say where you're from. Tell me your name first, as I don't want to call you by your username because some of y'all have some really interesting usernames. So please let me know your name, where you are tuning in from, and go ahead and drop some questions. Jordan, how have you been? How is it over there on the, as you say, best coast, whatever.
That's right. West Coast, Best Coast. What's up, guys? Super pumped to do this Q&A. Sans Sukanth. I don't know where he is, but here's the thing that I forgot that he's on India time right now. So it could be like the middle of the night there. I don't know, but he said he was going to be here, so that's on him, I guess. But dude, everything's good over here. It's hot, but not crazy hot yet. It's like in the 80s, 90s. So it's not like crazy, but it's hot. It's feeling like summer over here. What's going on? Oh,
Yeah.
the other thing, my family just went on a cruise without me today, so that is a bummer. I know.
People really just don't like you
I
for some
know,
reason.
man. My family left. Sukanth is not showing up. Yeah, dude, this is a rough day for me already. So I appreciate you being here, though, and all of you guys. Throw in the chat if you haven't yet. Where are you guys tuning in from? Super pumped you're here today, and loved to talk laundromats with you guys today. But Madison, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's extremely hot over here. Well, not, I wouldn't say extremely, because our folks down in Texas and Florida, even though it's wet right now, I'm sure they feel the heat. But last week it got up to about 106 degrees here.
Woo.
Um, yeah, the Apple Weather app lied and said, oh, it's just 97. No, my car told the truth. It's
Yeah,
106 degrees outside.
that's right.
Don't play with me, Apple Weather. I told my mother the other day, because I swear Apple Weather is always wrong. We were supposed to get rain on Friday, but we didn't get no rain. No rain
Mm.
until Saturday. And I told my mom, I was like, they must have like meteorologist interns in charge of Apple Weather, because it is always incorrect.
Yeah. Well, you just make a prediction out there, and most of the time you're wrong, most of the time you're right. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just a crapshoot. Is it humid? Because Emily says it's humid in Georgia. What's up, Emily? Here we're hanging out this week too. Super excited about that. Is it humid where you're
Mhm.
at?
Yeah. It's humid. It's wet and hot outside.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, the humidity is the tough one. And Pokey, what's going on? Dayton, Ohio, and Omar's here. Studio City, what's going on? Representing the West Coast over here again. Ooh, 90% humidity. And at some point, you might as well just be raining. Oh. I think Sukanth just popped in.
Oh,
How do I let him in,
is
though?
it
Oh, here
true?
we go.
Hey.
There he is. What's going on, man?
4:30 in the morning. So yeah, I'm completely up.
That's what I said. I was like, man, it's probably the middle of the night over there. So give him some slack.
No, it's just I completely confuse how to get on even after being the tech guy. Like
Uh,
it's pretty shameful from my end. Like I always end up missing the first few minutes of the podcast or the Q&A always just because I have trouble logging in.
yeah. That's always. I mean, we listen. This is notorious on these Q&As that we have some problem that goes on here, but we're just welcoming everybody. Tune in from all over the place. We're in Georgia, Ohio, Studio City. Noah's in
Mhm.
Seattle. What's going on? Southern Utah does not seem like the place to be. Deward
Mm.
said it's triple digit temperatures, very hot and very dry. And Maria's in Chicago. So, Camp, what's the weather like there?
So it has gone back from the triple digit weather to rain, and that means like raining for 6 days continuous. So yeah,
Monsoon
all good.
season.
Yeah, the rainy season. We don't really get a whole lot of rain around here, so.
But then the rainy season is good season for usual laundry businesses. Like in India, at least, there is a lot of pickup and delivery which happens. A lot of people do not get the opportunity to get their clothes dried out because of there is no sun drying available. So it's a good time for the business. This is a good like this from the rain to the next 6 months is like the winters is a very strong season for dry cleaners and laundry operators across the globe outside US.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's awesome. Well, hey, why don't you give us a quick background on who you are? And to those of you guys tuning in right now, we're here to answer questions laundromat related, pickup and delivery related, drop off related. So if you got questions in that vein somewhere in there, throw them in the chat. We'll get to all of those questions. But while those are coming in, Sukanth, why don't you give us the background on who you are?
So my name is Sukanth. I'm actually the founder of Turns. Turns is an all-in-one management system built for specifically for the new generation of laundromats and dry cleaners across the globe. I personally have had a long association with the industry. Like almost a decade ago, I was able to start a multi-location pickup and delivery laundry business back here in India, which scaled to a fantastic proposition of multiple cities, and I had the opportunity to sell it off like to one of the biggest franchisees. But then, our laundry guys are usually laundry people, so came back. I always felt that the kind of tools and the kind of mindset and the kind of processes that I was able to create, I would be able to help other operators across. And then in last 4 years, I've worked with almost 500 operators across the globe, almost 100 plus operators specifically in US, managing locations, some of them in millions and some of them just starting off. So understanding, working with them and learning a lot from these experiences across.
Yeah, it's a lot of experiences from different angles in the industry, and it's very cool that you have sort of that operational perspective, and obviously, like it's a little bit different there than it is here in a lot of ways. And then there's a lot of stuff that overlaps too, which is really cool. But also very cool that you have that perspective of now that you have a software and you're utilizing that to try to help operators grow their businesses, pick them delivery, drop off laundry service, dry cleaning services, all that stuff, that you have this sort of broader perspective too of the industry, of what's working, what's not working, all that stuff. So can we kick it off with this question, which is, if I'm looking to get started I have a self-serve laundromat and I want to get started with a drop-off laundry service, do you have any tips that you see that are working for, for operators that we can kind of implement to help us get started with the drop-off laundry service?
So I think there is. So what I've realized is that the industry is segmented into pretty small, not pretty small, but pretty fixed big portions. For example, there is a big in part of this industry which is purely self-serve. Some of them are unattended, some of them are attended. Some of them who are attended want to convert into wash dry fold. So some of them are fully attended, like all the hours attended, or some of them open up with a small version which is lockers. So if you are, for example, a self-serve which does not have probably an attended laundromat for a significant portion of the times, you could basically implement lockers into the ecosystem, which is one of the cheaper and the simpler ways in which people try and deflect this away from the idea of, let's say, having a full-time guy there. But it grows well also to an extent, like, and lockers are the rage in some of the extremely populated areas, not just in US but outside. Like we see a lot of deliveries which are dropped by e-commerce vendors like even Amazon or the big boys from our end into lockers which are controlled by keypads. And similarly, such lockers are being used in multiple hotels, like big hotel chains, where they would want a, if you face any issues with your laundry or dry cleaning, just put it in a locker and we'll fix it for you, and you'll get charged on your way out once you're checking out. So lockers is one of the good ways of starting this out. But what I've seen is that if you have a guy there, if you have a person who's in the place, and if you're able to promote yourself, let's say not going full scale 8 hours or 12 hours, but let's say climbing it down to something like 4 hours on a specific day from A to B shift, B to C shift. Probably if you could push that down, a person in that shift would be a very, very good way of segueing into more wash dry fold, because what we've realized is people respond to people. It's very hard to have a good conversation with a locker, no matter how much the locker can talk. So a person, a sales guy, with the gun at the end is sometimes required and sometimes extremely helpful and accurate. So some investment, but yes, I would say if you want to make very low investment, want to just dip your toes in the water, maybe go up with lockers. And if you want to even dip your toes further, get your feet wet, probably get somebody to manage the wash dry fold for you for a smaller period of time. And if you want to try this out, just get somebody, one or even you, for an instance, for a week or a couple of weeks, and start this business off. And I think just then pass it on.
Yeah, I think those are good tips. I mean, I think you're addressing one of the two big issues when it comes to starting a wash, dry, fold, or drop off laundry business from scratch, right? The one of the big ones is labor's expensive, right? So in order to try to get started without a huge investment up front and going in the red too much up front while you're building up that business, the locker system or having, shortened split shifts to minimize labor costs are awesome. I think the other big obstacle, and maybe you can talk to this too, is how, okay, so let's say I'm like, okay, I'm going to do lockers or I'm going to have a split shift, somebody working, 8 a.m. to noon and somebody else working 6 to 10 p.m. How do I actually go about getting customers? Do you see sort of that marketing advertising side? How do I actually acquire those customers? You see anything in particular working?
So, and I can see one of the questions here,
Yeah, we'll
like
get
how
there.
did my business increase by 45% by using turns.
Yeah.
So what we realized is, and this is my personal, I think this is what I personal anecdotes, and as well as what we've realized across working with thousands, hundreds of operators across, is laundromat operators are extremely good with customers, but not extremely good at doing the grunt work of marketing. It's hard. It takes time. It's consuming, and it becomes easier if you have extremely easily, readily available data. But then a marketing campaign is not one and done. It's usually, sadly, extremely repetitive, extremely analytical, and time consuming. So you need to understand what works, what doesn't work. You have to go back, check the data again, see if anything moved or not. If it did move, how much did it move? Did you actually end up making money or actually ended up losing money? If you made money, then you should do more. How much more? So these are things that it takes time. So what we did in our ecosystem is, first, there are two ways of gaining customers, or two ways of, I would say, growing your revenue. I think in that terms, one is acquiring new customers, which is the harder part, which is the costlier part, because you have to pay, or let's say the customer acquisition cost up front. Like you have to pay something to the piper, to the ad networks, to the ad roles, to the person who's standing at your store, probably carrying a card and telling people, why don't you come inside and check out the store? Let it be flyers, let it be meeting people, let it be driving around in your car and promoting yourself, or going to multiple locations and promoting yourself, or let's say even joining chamber of commerce and promoting yourself. It takes effort, it takes money, it takes time. But once this wheel starts rolling is when this gets really enjoyable, because a once you have good enough or small, even small number of customers, you can convert them into word of mouth, you can convert them into testimonials, you can probably use them even in your marketing tools and your marketing, in your marketing materials, which helps more and more customers who would identify with such customers. Let's say a short guy, a Latino guy, they would see the, or let's say a tall guy, or a girl or a woman, or there are multiple facets of your business that you could basically communicate to the different segments of users. And that's how you get the initial set in. It's expensive. Like There are a lot of people who tell you that this business is not expensive, but this business is expensive in terms of only the initial customer in cost, because once the customer is in, the lifetime value of that customer, the amount of times that he would come back to you, the amount of repetitiveness that there is existing in the system. Let's say if he comes back to you even twice a month for 12 months on a roll, you would have probably gotten your money back in the first couple of months, or probably even a month. So you're just making free money of 11 months on that guy. And usually laundromat customers are like decade customers sometimes. If you just don't piss them off, then they are decade customers. Like I've had some like operators that work with us tell us that the whole family has been coming to their store for almost 10 years, 7 years, 8 years, and they identify and they're friends. So you get to understand this. And then the next one is, once you get these people in the door, is to keep them coming back. Like most of the times what I sadly see is people gain up to, let's say, 100 customers, but only 25 remain, and they always feel that hey, they're pushed against the wall, they need to go again and acquire another 30, another 40, another 50, another 100. But this is a very, like, laundry is a very beautiful repeat business if done properly, if executed even extremely well, not the best. So if you can get probably 70% of the people who came into your store or who did drop offs with you to keep coming back in some capacity of the form, I think the revenue would grow itself. So yes, spending money up front and spending smaller amounts of money to keep that money going on is what is usually required to start a wash dry food business. With turns, we get you the ability of the second one. So we realize that sometimes it's expensive to initially start off with spending money. So we have a full marketing service team which has worked with almost 200 plus operators across the globe, facing different types of issues, fixing different types of ads across, and being mildly to pretty successful in driving business to them. So that's how we help you to grow your business up front, because we've seen that it's hard for operators to understand the ad world. And I'll just say one thing very technical. I hope people understand. Google is not the best friend that we have. Like, their job is to make money. So a lot of people think that they can run basically the Google AI ads, and it's very easy to run. But if you would talk to any experienced operator, it's a well. It can just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper if you don't really understand what is going on exactly. So having some team or having somebody who has that experience is a good way to get into this. And our system turns is pretty integrated with AI ecosystem of marketing, which handles the second part. So we have all your data. We know who's coming in, who's not coming in, when are they coming in, are they spending enough money or not. So you can just set up text messages, emails for these customers on very specific times. For example, whenever it's their birthday, you could even send them a birthday card. You could send them gift cards through these text messages automatically. So that's where we help you keep growing that business automatically, rather than a consistent effort going in from an operator to not just make sure that their machines are working, that their employees are there and the labor is performing, but also making sure that their marketing and their promotion is going on.
Yeah, that was really awesome. And you brought up a couple of things I just want to touch on just for a second. You brought up CAC, CAC, cost to acquire a customer, and churn, which is how many of those customers you can keep coming back. And churn is actually how many actually end up leaving your services, right? Now, you know, the lower you can get that cost to acquire a customer, obviously, the more profitable you're going to be. And also the lower your churn rate is, you know, the more profitable in the long run, and the more lifetime value of those customers you're going to have, right? However, I feel like I harp on this a lot, but I just don't feel like it's enough yet. And I don't hear enough people saying it. We've got to track those things. We've got to keep track of how much is it actually costing us to acquire those customers. Because if we know that, it gives us a lot of flexibility on what kinds of ads we can run, what kinds of promotions we can run. For example, let's just say, I'm throwing out fake numbers here, but let's just say it costs us $50 to acquire a new customer. Well, guess what? You can actually get the customers to pay for that ad spend for you by offering a promotion that's, hey, spend $100 on pickup and delivery laundry, get $100 free. And now they've just given you $100 and it costs you $50 to acquire them. So you've just made money in order to gain their business. And now you can focus on that churn rate and keeping them coming back. Right. So if we know these numbers and we can start to fine tune those numbers, our profitability is going to go through the roof. But it also is an indicator of how well we're serving our customers if they're sticking around for longer.
I would
So,
put it in the other way, like
yeah.
Jason. Jordan, for example, the basic part is churn is under your control. So this is where you should be extremely hard about. Like customer acquisition cost, yes, you can. And I would go about the other way, like Jordan mentioned, that we should know what should be our customer acquisition cost. Let's say we know it's $50, then how much can we spend, etc. I would go about it the opposite way, because what I've seen is a lot of people get hung up on the customer acquisition part. It's not our normal. It's a not normal behavior where you expect to spend XYZ and then probably hope to see something come back. So I would probably go it from the other way. Let's say, how much do you think you can make from a laundromat customer if you give them great service? Find the LTV rather than finding the CAC. And once you find the lifetime value, let's say that guy is gonna come to you 20 times. You just expect that guy is gonna come to us 20 times. Every time he's gonna spend something like $40. So that's about $800 worth of business in a year. Now, how much do you think you can spend to acquire an $800 of business? Somebody might say, I just want to spend 30, and they might never get that $800 of business. Somebody might say, hey, I would be ready to go up to 200. I'll make my money back inside 3 months. I'll take that risk. Probably they'll be acquiring a lot more. So customer acquisition costs are also not extremely fixed. They depend. They depend on seasons. They depend on people who are competing against you. So they are sometimes in your control, but sometimes out of your control. Churn is 100% in your control most of the times, until unless these guys just drop or just move away. So it's under your control, and that is where I think a lot of focus of operators should be, and a lot of data should be mapped out, rather than just worrying that, hey, I have to spend $1,000 to get 20 people in. Probably that 20 people in made you a $20,000. So it's a game of waiting it out and executing while the whole show is running in front of you and you get to learn what's going to happen. It takes something like 4 to 5 months to get into that groove and rhythm, to understand what's going on, not, and just not being scared during that time, maybe.
Yeah, agree totally. I mean, I think you need all of them, right? Like you need to know your lifetime value of the customer. I think you do need to know the cost to acquire a customer. And you're right, it does change, but I think you also need to track that change. And because if you have both of those numbers and the churn rate, you've got a lot of control over your business, right? Even though you can't necessarily control all of those variables, when you understand all of those variables, you've got a lot of different levers you can pull to help you grow your business there. So I love that. Do you have, well, I'll just ask it because it was asked. Do you have any particular machine brands that you recommend?
Is this a gotcha question?
Well, are there any machine? Okay, here's what I'll say about that. Let me say something about that. So I'll say most of the machine brands are pretty good. Most of the machine brands are getting a lot of the same things. Some of them have different nuances and different, little like promotional things or things that, marketing things that they can do that maybe other ones can't do. Most of them, you're getting a pretty good product. They're for the most part, going to last, about the same amount of time. I will say, listen, what's important here is number one, the people who are selling them to you, are they helpful for you? Number two, is can you find somebody to service these machines? in your area, which is tricky, especially certain brands of machines. It's tricky to find service technicians for those. And number three, is it going to do what you want it to do? And probably all those brands will. So let me change the question for you, Sukanth. Is are there any machines that turns doesn't work with? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, is there?
I'll put it this way. So, and this is the good part of, I think, and this is the choice part of being in America. So in US currently, I think there will be at least 10 different manufacturers of machine manufacturers currently running around, and probably the main company behind them would be only three or four. So there are different brands made by probably a similar safe factory, and they are massive. So what I've realized is that a lot of people make mistakes in buying not just the machinery, like which machine that they should buy, but not probably buying the right mix. And sometimes it creates a little bit of problem. And as you mentioned, I think one of the biggest reasons of buying machinery, it should be who is selling them, and will they be able to help you scale with this. Like for example, if you face any issues, would they be able to hook you up with any technician who would be able to come up soon enough so that machine gets to make money back again. How is enough literature available for you? Let's say a lot of people want to put it on themselves. Hey, I'm going to fix a lot of these machines, I'm going to learn XYZ, and then and for the first time when they go through these machines, they face a lot of issues just because there is not a lot of literature available. Like I see a lot of people asking questions like, what does EDR mean, what does 01 as a error code mean, etc. So where there is enough literature available and you can go through it easily, or probably somebody who could guide you through it easily, if it you don't have to end up asking it on Facebook, probably calling somebody and getting them to fix it for you a lot faster, would be a good brand of machine to buy. And the brand that you're mostly buying is the guy who's selling it to you.
Yeah. Although I will say, more and more, the person who's selling it to you is coming from the manufacturer side because they're buying up all the distributors right now. So I just keep your eye on that. I think that might start changing here in the near future. This whole dynamic that we have going on right now. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I
We're
think
gonna
something's happening.
we're gonna enter a new age. Like
Hmm.
it's not just happening in laundry. Like I see this from a different country, and I see this in multiple countries. Like everybody's trying to go direct. That's the whole month, the new mantra of making much more profitable and leaner organizations is just to go direct, because a lot of customers have probably felt that they haven't been served by the existing population very well. They have been underserved. Some of them feel that they haven't been given the right appropriate care, the right appropriate advice, the right appropriate help that they required. And the manufacturer feels helpless because a there is no direct connect with the customer. So they get some brickbats of it that, hey, XYZ, I bought your product. Okay, somebody else sold it to me, but I bought your product. So they want to go direct. Also, there's a perverse incentive because manufacturer frees up a lot of inventory. They free up a lot of margins by going direct. But I would say that a person and it might be that the distributors of the old might not be the distributors of future. There might be something like we've seen a lot of different things that are happening currently, even in the restaurant industry. Like the way they had their distributor setup, the value added reseller setup has changed drastically in last 10 years, specifically post COVID. So things may change here also, but this is a bit different. And I genuinely feel like, and I might be the old school guy, even though I sell the new age stuff, is getting a person who's really helpful makes a ton of difference. It can be the difference between success and failure sometimes, and that can be so stark. Like most of the bad advice won't kill you, But in laundromats, a bad distributor or a bad person who's selling you the machines probably dents your chance of surviving by a massive percentage. So be and this is and I we work with distributors across also. So we just feel that this is an industry where I think a lot of people should work together. I think more and more, and it keeps everybody on check. It's like not it's not just the distributors who should keep the customers on check, or the customers who should keep distributors on check. There's a whole community there. The idea that a machine which works perfectly fine in XYZ location probably doesn't work for some other location, and these are the kind of things that you would only learn from somebody who has been in such markets, who has seen the end and breadth of these markets. So I don't see that the knowledge of distributors is going to go away, but maybe yeah, the machines might. Like, distributors are not just machine sellers. There is a lot of packed knowledge there which people pay for, not just the machines. And I don't see that knowledge going anywhere. That knowledge is extremely important for growth of this industry, as well as growth of people making sure that they go higher.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. I had I don't want to say a bad distributor, but my first laundromat was a big disaster, and a big part of the reason for that was the distributor that I was working with. And Dave Menz and Dave Laundromat Millionaire Menz, right? He raves about his distributor, and he had a totally different experience than I did early on in this business, and he did really well. And I think a big part of that was because he had a really great distributor with a lot of back knowledge that really helped him out. And a lot of my struggles, I'm not blaming anybody but myself, but it contributed, right, to my struggles early on, that I didn't have a distributor that was really backing me up. Especially when things didn't play out the way they were supposed to.
I've seen, for example, I just yesterday had a conversation with one of our operators across in Los Angeles, like, and it was a tricky conversation because it was a hard conversation. It was a hard conversation because that guy was losing something like $7,000 to $10,000 a month, and this
Yeah.
is a guy. This is an individual losing that sort of cash,
Yeah.
and he was extremely unhappy. I asked him, like, he was asking me how could he close that gap ASAP, like it has to be closed yesterday. And then I asked him, like, why are you such in such hole? Like, did you go crazy? Did you go ahead and build something new, and then there were 10 in and around you? And he mentioned some things like, hey, I wasn't helped in the right way, I wasn't given the right profile, I was misled, etc., etc. So I genuinely felt that sometimes when you get stuck in these scenarios, no amount of money would be able to help you. Like, there is no coming out except taking a big slap on the big haircut on whatever you've paid for, and a big slap to the ego. Like, there is nothing, there is no other way of coming out sometimes if you're not careful. Like, so that's why I feel like yes, the good information, pure information, somebody who cares, somebody who makes sure that it's not just a one and done, making sure that they see a successful business, they see a successful business owner in the future, they like working with such people who want to be successful and want to be guiding them in the right place, is worth its weight in gold. So if you get somebody like this, just do hold on to them. It's not very, this industry is sometimes flush with cash. There are a lot of big transactions that go on. So finding honest, authentic, right people who are thinking for you is not that, it's not that easy and common. And if you do, then you should keep them ASAP and keep them as much as possible.
Yeah. I agree. I probably know who they were working with too. I've got like two guesses, and one of them's probably the right one. Yeah, that's tough. I've definitely had similar conversations with people who are losing big time money, way even more than I was losing early on in my experience with my first laundromat. And it just my heart goes out to them, right? Because it's just a tough situation to be in. It's one of those times where, like you said, you may be able to dig yourself out of that hole, but you may just need to take the haircut and move on, learn the lessons,
Yeah,
and
like, it's a
apply
very
'em.
burnt feeling. Like, even when you talk to, like, I was not losing money, but when you talk to such a scenario, you want people who are trying to run this. And see, he's working extra hard, but it's very hard to come out of a hole where it's that deep. It's just, it just is.
Yep. Yeah, and if it's even possible, it's gonna take time. Like it, that's just there's no $10,000 a month magic pill where all of a sudden you've got it all. You know, it's gonna take. It's like walk a mile into the forest. It's gonna take you a mile to get out of the forest, at least, if not longer.
Yep.
So with all that, Jessica asked a great question. What should we be looking for in a distributor? How do we know a good one when we see them?
So I think that's I think I would first get you to answer this, because I think you would have a lot more experience. But I would give my views just based on something that you've said, because I have a few criterias in which I would say that they should look for. Maybe I am looking at it from a worldwide view, but you could give them a macro view first.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple things, for me, and Sukanth kind of mentioned this earlier, but I mean, really, I'm looking for somebody who cares, right? Somebody who cares, somebody who gets the big picture of if they help me succeed, it's going to help them succeed also, right? And there's a lot of distributors and brokers or agents out there who either don't see that or that's just not the mindset that they have, where really what they want to do is they just want to make the sale, right? And then you don't hear from them again. So what I'm looking for is somebody who has a lot of knowledge about the industry, so ask a lot of questions. Somebody who is who kind of gets that big picture of when I win, they win, right? And and having that vision of like, I like to I like to prepare for the worst, but I like to plan for the best, right? So if I'm going to buy a laundromat, I plan on buying multiple. I want to scale this thing up, right? So I want to have somebody who has sort of that vision there with me. So I want to see that they have knowledge. I want to see that they care. I want to see that they have some connections in this industry too, right? So who do they know who can help install? Who do they know who can help service machines in the long run? Who do they know? What software founders do they know that they can introduce me to? So when I'm trying to make that decision, right, can they connect me with the right people? Now you don't have to rely solely on the distributor, but that's going to be a good litmus test on if this person is in this industry, right? Is going to be able to help you succeed. So, and that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? And then what I recommend is talking with multiple, right, and see what different distributors, how you connect with them, because that's I think another important thing too, if you can work well with them or not. And I would want to be looking at, okay, what does distributor A recommend in terms of like a machine mix and why? What does distributor B recommend in terms of a machine mix and why? Asking a lot of why questions, and just trying to gauge, do they know what they're talking about? Do they have my best interest in mind? Are they just trying to sell me as many machines as possible and then I'm never going to hear from them again? Or do they genuinely want to help me succeed because it's going to help them succeed? I'll throw it back to you.
So I would put it in much more simpler terms. Like
Thank
a
you.
good,
Thank you for doing that.
a
Everybody's
good
like, finally,
distributor,
shut Jordan up and just tell us what he's trying to say here.
like Jordan gave a very detailed profile. Like I probably would give you a lot smaller TLDR version of this. And in this is, a distributor is a problem solver. He's your problem solver. And as a problem solver, the guy who's solving problems is usually giving the person who's for whom he's solving the problems options. So a good distributor would open options for you and will tell you, if you take this path, where does it lead to? Like, I'm not saying that one distributor might just come and say, let's say, hey, XYZ, just buy 50 machines, 100 machines, buy this mix, buy that mix. A good distributor would tell you, you can buy this mix, you can do this mix, you can do this mix, and you can do this too. This will probably net you these problems. This will probably net you this problem. You could buy this payment system, full card. You can make no issues in life. but yeah, this might just be $50,000. Yeah, you could buy something which could be cheaper. He gives you options. He listens to you. He understands your problems and he gives you multiple options. The idea should be on your solving of solution of your problem, not on the sale. So, and once you start to get that feel, then that's a good time to understand that if you could get another second opinion of anybody else, because the moment you get to understand if and the easiest way of understanding whether it's a good distributor or not is to talk to three of them. So you will realize which one of them was actually trying to solve your problem, or all three of them were not trying to solve your problem, or all three of them were good enough. And if they were good, they would probably give you similar kind of responses and similar kind of direction for your store. And that is what you would say a good distributor would be. And I think what Jordan said, 100%, if they are connected, if they are able to solve your problems if they are able to give you a man Friday, or even are able to listen to you not being happy about getting that there fast. Let's say they're not just, see, a distributor can just be a distributor, but a distributor can be a mentor slash friend too. He has just seen too much. Like a usually good distributor would have seen so many of you come and some of us fall, that they would know that what sort of a trepidation a laundromat operator could go through. So somebody who's there for you, somebody who wants to be your friend, who wants to make you succeed, as well as making some money by selling you good machines, good options, is a good distributor,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that was a lot simpler than what I said. Somebody help you solve problems. I mean, that's pretty good. Uh, are there going up to who asked this? Oh, Dimitri asked. Are there any locker manufacturers or any that work with turns that you're working with?
So I see this question a lot. Like a lot of people are asking what sort of lockers that they should buy. So we work with a couple of locker companies. We are also in process of integrating with Haima, which is another locker company. But we've seen like there are laundry lockers, busy lockers, which are on the lower end. So it depends on what sort of a presentation you want to make to the customer. Like a locker is just a self storage space. You can make it extremely high tech, go the next way, or you could even have it a very low tech and take it in the smaller step. So I would say almost all the locker companies are extremely excellent to work with. But depends on what sort of material do you want. You at least do not want your locker to be ransacked, which is one of the important things. So yes, do invest in a good locker, because you're buying it to make sure that it stays for a long period of time. It is saving you a lot of labor costs. So cheapening out on the locker might be very harmful in the long end.
Yeah, and just one thing I want to throw out, and maybe you can comment on this too, on the locker thing. Just one thing to kind of consider is one of the big constraints of the locker system for laundry is that laundry takes up space, right? And so those lockers need to have enough space for people to actually drop off and leave their laundry, which is not a problem, but just as your business starts to grow, you just need to have that in your mind, because you probably aren't going to scale to a really big business using only a locker system. I would say it's something that can help you really get started early on, and it's something that you can supplement your staffed hours with a locker system for when you're not staffed. But just kind of something to, I think, keep in mind, because that is one constraint in our particular business where dirty clothes take up a lot of space compared to like a lot of Amazon packages or things like that. I don't know, anything you want to say on that?
So laundry lockers are usually designed different from the Amazon package lockers, and that's why a
Yeah.
lot of people feel the burn when they are extreme, when they are a bit more expensive. And one thing that you said, I even though I shouldn't be expanding too much onto it, I would say the locker strategy is usually the opposite strategy. So a locker strategy is usually you keep the locker in places where customers exist already, rather than the opposite where they come to your store and then put it inside a locker. So if you really want to go, let's gung ho with lockers, why not put it in the university dorm? Like, if you want to have a locker, why put it in your store where people are coming in? There are 10 different problems. It attracts more and more attention because people know that you're unattended. There is something important inside the locker. That's why it's locked. So why not have it inside the dorm? It's easier for customers to drop off, to pick up, and it's easier for you to also manage that relationship without it being outside your ecosystem. So, and by the way, there's a company called Dry in, like, in Chicago, and which they have tons, and they've probably partnered with hundreds of real estate locations where they put up their lockers. Like, I met with Tide people, they put up their lockers across university campuses. So if you want to go towards that strategy, I think this style of doing it would not be a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Dan, who's in the chat there, Splash 'em Out Laundromat, says he's putting lockers in this week. So he'll let us all know how it goes. So there we go. We're going to have the inside scoop straight from the mouth of Joe Dan Reed. Thanks, Joe Dan. We got another question here. How do you know how much to charge, and how do you know when to raise prices and how much to raise prices?
So I had this great experience. So I was in Queens with one of our operators, and he was a new store operator. And I hope he's not watching this. I hope he's watching this because I hope he watches you and gets to learn a lot more things. But I hope he's not watching today. So, so I met him, and his prices were extremely low, like compared to New York prices. I told him, like, dude, you're 30% lower than everybody else. And he was like, that's why people come here. And I was like, are you sure? Like, if that's why people come here, then everybody around you should be dead. There should not be four laundromats in and around you. Like, if you're so cheap, if you're so awesome, if you're so good, and there is no opportunity of you raising any prices, then all these guys should be dead already. Their businesses should be out, but it's not. So he took me, and he took me to all these operators places. He used to stand outside, I used to go inside because he didn't want to show his face in a competitor's location. So I got to I talked to a lot of, like, all these laundromat operators. I saw their prices, I came back. He raised his prices the next day, and nothing happened except him making more money. And then he raised his prices again after 3 months, and he made even more money. And he was confused, like, nothing changed, the number of people were the same. No, not even a single guy dropped. So what he did was, and our plan was basically to get to at least equal of what everybody else was doing, or at worst be the average lowest. Like, it would not mean that I have to be the lowest, but if there are people who are 150, 150, 150, 135, I would rather be 145, if not 150. So I think a lot of people are scared, and it should be. I am also scared when I am asked to price my product 10 times. Like, sometimes it's something else, sometimes it's something else, but you get to learn. And this is where I think people should be a bit more adventurous. Probably they could make this decision a lot more faster than what they do. I think people suppress their earnings a lot more, a lot longer because of fear, which I think they could assuage if they could just go around, see what their customers are they overlapping with the operators that they're competing with, and prices are usually based on location and competitors. So stay in touch, and I think you'll be good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I would add, and again, not to harp on this too much, but it also helps to know how much it costs you to run your laundromat, and to actually price based off of, okay, here are my expenses, and here is the margin I want to make in my business. Maybe it's 30%, 40%, whatever, more or less, and to price according to that too. And the laundry room team over here makes a good point. Is, listen, if you're sometimes you can just come in and raise prices because you're 30% under, and where are people going to go if you raise prices to equal? They're not going to leave just to go pay the same, right? Sometimes you could just raise prices, but once you start to get up to be the price leader or around that mark, you've got to you got to take a look at your operation and make sure that you're serving customers and that the value you're providing is worth the price that you're charging, which is I mean, a great point there. Because that should be our goal, right? Because we want to try to maximize profits, yes, but we also want to try to maximize the customer experience in our stores, because that's going to allow us to charge higher prices. That's going to attract more customers. It's going to attract easier to deal with customers, and yada yada yada. All the other stuff kind of falls in line when you're taking a look at your operation and trying to provide maximum value, but charge accordingly in that situation.
I think most of the people who face this issue, should I raise prices or not, are just scared that their business is not differentiated enough. Like and I might have just overshared this, but I just feel that they feel scared that they don't do something which is different from the other guy across the street. And the moment you find the answer, what you do different, I think you'll automatically raise your prices. You'll automatically understand that I would do this no matter what happens. These people would love this and would never go. Even if I charge them, let's say, 5 to 10 cents more or 10% more, let's say, they won't go because I do this, which the other guy is not ready to do. And if he's ready to do, then I'll outperform something else. I'll bring something else. This is the continuous innovation part of laundry, even though it's a boring business. So, yes, this is what allows you to change your pricing and makes you confident enough to change pricing also.
Yeah. Okay. So Madison and Steak Sauce getting after it right there in the chat. But Steak Sauce brings up a point, trying to get equipment, but has bad credit. I don't know if you want to make any comments. I can make a comment on that. It's not necessarily my wheelhouse, but I can make a couple comments. I don't know if you want to comment on that, either one of you guys.
I can make the same uneducated comments, so I'll be a bad distributor. So I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, number one, get your credit up. That's the easy, answer there. Easier said than done. But that's one thing. Number two, most times you can still get equipment and equipment financing. If you have bad credit, you're just going to pay more for it. Now, there's a threshold in there somewhere where they're like, we're just not going to give you any money at all, right? But usually, if you got a little bit lower credit, your rate just goes up and you can still get it. Another option is to bring on a partner with better credit. And, sometimes that's just what you got to do. You either got to wait and build your own credit back up, or you bring on somebody else, or you raise money from an outside private source that's not a bank, and finance the equipment that way, right? So there's lots of different ways to do it. But listen, ultimately, one of the barriers to entry in this business is that it can be expensive to get in there, right? And so you've got to have some capital, and you might need a little bit of credit too. Although I found that that's been sort of secondary from what I've seen, although they do consider it. And so that's one of the obstacles. But if you can figure out a way to overcome that obstacle, either by saving up money, partnering with somebody, finding a private money source, using retirement funds, whatever the case may be, if you can overcome that obstacle, that is your path, to laundromat ownership and achieving whatever your goals are with laundromat ownership.
If your credit is too poor and you know why it's too poor, then probably even taking a step back and even trying to understand whether doing a laundromat is good for you or not is also not a bad option. These are expensive games. Like, you should play this when you're at your full force. Do not play this with one hand tied behind your back. It does not end very nice for a lot of times for such in such scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, and there's nothing easy about running any business, right? Or buying any business and making these decisions, right? So you definitely want to try to set yourself up for success as much as you can. Okay, here's another question that just came in. Found a shop for sale. My analysis, especially with the new lease, is much. I'm assuming that lease went up versus the original lease is much lower. So my analysis is much lower than what they're asking. Is it still worth making an offer? Um, what do you think? Still worth making an offer if they're
Obviously,
lower?
you should always put in an offer. The ball that you don't play is the ball that you can't hit. So you don't know, you put in an offer, that guy might just be tempted up. There might be an emergency that he might need the money. He might just want to exit the business. So putting yourself at least in the queue would not be a bad option.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I've told the story before, but I had some clients that were trying to buy a laundromat. They reached out to an owner directly. The owner said, "Yeah, we're interested in selling." Uh, they wanted $850,000 for it, and we did our analysis, and the analysis said it was worth about 450. So I said, "Listen, you've got to go offer 450, or we can just move on." But they were super nervous to do it. Feels super uncomfortable to send in that low ball of an offer, but that's what the laundromat was worth. So we did that. And after a few days of not hearing back and feeling like, oh man, maybe we offended them, they came back and revised their asking price to $500,000. So $350,000 evaporated like that. And one thing to just kind of keep in mind is, number one, valuations are higher now than I've seen them since I've been in the industry. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. Number two is most laundromats are being listed by sellers and or brokers even higher than most of them are going for right now. So a lot of times they expect a little bit lower coming in. And number three, most sellers, most buyers, it's their first time buying a laundromat. Most sellers, it's their first time selling a laundromat. So they don't always know how to value the laundromat. So is it worth putting an offer in? Yes. And especially if you have numbers to back it. Do you risk offending a seller? Yes. Do you risk annoying a broker? Yes. But ultimately, and I've said this 1,000 times, I would rather pass on 10 really good deals than buy one really bad one. Because like we talked about earlier, it can be really difficult to dig yourself out of that hole. And sometimes it's not even possible. So yeah, I mean, I think if you did an analysis, you've got numbers backing you up, make the offer. What kind of lawyer or consultant should you seek to help draft an offer? So if there's a broker in play, that broker can help you draft an offer. If not, you can look up a small business lawyer. I mean, we've got consultants, obviously, laundromatresource.com/coaching that can help you kind of put some of that stuff together. So if that's something you're looking for, you can check that out there. But if there's a
Are
broker
you a
involved,
hard negotiator, Jordan?
what's
Like,
that?
are you a hard negotiator? Like, if you are, let's say you are the consultant, are you like super strict with the numbers, or do you give them like, hey, it's 50, $60,000? It usually moves on in and out.
Yeah, it depends. For me, when I'm talking to a client, it depends on how bad they want a deal. It depends on how tight their finances are, and it depends on what they plan on doing with the thing and what the client wants, right? So sometimes I can be a very hard negotiator, and I've walked away from deals personally, and I've had clients walk away from deals for very relatively close gaps between asking and offer. But I've also, I've had clients who are just like, I just want to get my foot in the door. I just want to get in there. And so we've gotten to a number that's close enough that I wouldn't normally, but hey, this is the goal, right? I'm all about aligning that offer with the goal of the buyer. If I'm helping a buyer out, right? Aligning the offer with the goal. And if the goal is get it, I'm willing to walk away, but unless I get this number, then we go hard in the paint. And if they're like, I just want to get my foot in the door, then we'll go hard up to a point, and then we'll kind of give a little.
I would love to see the data of the really hard negotiated ones. How are they? Are they successful more, or are the ones who gave enough leeway, were like really interested, were really like, I see a lot of operators who are just too excited. Sometimes I get scared. They are so much more excited to get into the business. They are like, everything else is just on the back burner right now. I'm gonna go head first in, and everything is gonna be laundromat. And sometimes some people are like, only this will work for me if this gets full and this gets full and this gets full and this happens and that happens. So I've met both of the kind of operators. So I just wanted to understand, like, do you see any corollary on who gets to be more successful usually?
Uh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of specific cases. I mean, it would all be anecdotal, but I don't know. But I will say that one kind of vote for the harder negotiator right now is that with prices being inflated, interest rates being higher, it's you've got to be a little bit tighter in your offers, but it's harder to do right now because it's a seller's market at the moment. But you've got to be a little bit tighter in those negotiations to make it work, unless you plan on coming in, putting turns in your store and increasing that revenue 45%. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely 100%.
That's
But I think one of the things that I really would want to see is more verification of income. I think this is where my heart really beats very fast, because a lot of these operators, when I meet them, they're just usually talking about incomes or what they would start inherit from that store on based of hunches and probable ideas. Like the and like I told you about the guy who was losing thousands and thousands of dollars, right? That guy was told that the store was gonna make double of what it actually ended up making.
Yep.
So the difference was so massive. So is there no easy way of mapping what a store is making? Like, is there any easy ways that they can tap this out?
Yeah, well, so the way that we do it, and there's most of these resources you can find on laundromatresource.com. If you go in the resources tab, go in the guides and worksheets, you can download a lot of resources. But essentially, what we do is we do what's called an income verification stack, and we use a bunch of different methods of verifying income, and then we just stack them on top of each other, and we look for any anomalies, anything that's not making sense, anything that stands out. Water usage doesn't match up with income numbers, or anything like that that's going on. It's not always super easy to do, and especially if the seller's not cooperating with giving
Yeah,
documents, which a lot of times they're not right now, and rarely are bank statements and taxes matching up with the P&Ls that they're giving you. And so you really got to do a little bit of sleuthing to figure out what that is. And I think my case, I've said this a thousand times, but if me, when I bought my first laundromat, could have spoken with me now for 15 minutes, it would have saved me six figures. Right. And that same with that client, right? Like if that client would have just spent a little money to have somebody who knew what they were talking about, just to make sure everything was going well for them, it would have saved them $10,000 a month, right? $7,000 to $10,000 a month.
probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So for me, I mean, it's if there's yellow flags popping up, you're looking at a laundromat, there's yellow flags or red flags popping up, or you're not really sure. It's just I mean, if you're going to drop six figures on a laundromat, it makes all the sense in the world to find somebody who knows this business that can look for the gotchas, make sure, you're covering your bases with all the different red flags, and make sure things are just lining up the way they're supposed to be. Just so you get in the right way, because when you get in the right way the first time, like, sky's the limit for you. You can go, you can
but
scale.
almost all the deals that you see, like, I'm just asking from a operator's
Yeah.
perspective, would have some shade of yellow and red in them always, right? Like,
Yeah.
it must be there, because if it's all green, the guy won't sell. Like, that's what is the biggest red flag for me. When the guy is saying it's the best performing store of all time and they want to sell, and their asking price is probably not that crazily high. So, like, I always feel that anybody who's selling the store, there would be offshoots where you could grow this, but there would be things that would not be going well, or there would be some issues, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's true. But, I mean, you said this about distributors too, right? Consultant, distributor, some brokers. You got to be careful. And DJ Daruma said something about this. Like, I'm worried about dealing with the brokers because their interest is to make the sale. Kind of the same with the distributors, right? Their interest is in making the sale, and the more they sell you, to Joe Dan Reed's point, the more they sell you, the more money they make, right? So you got to be careful a little bit with that. But if you find somebody who just knows the business, there's not a lot that you haven't seen, right? Like you've probably seen a ton. I know I've seen a ton of stuff. I've done over 1,000 consulting calls now in this industry, and I've seen, I don't want to say everything, but I've seen a lot, right? So I know the things to look for. I know the things that happen in this business, right? And so, yeah, there's almost, not always, but almost always some yellow flags, some red flags. And then the question becomes, well, can we get to the bottom of those and understand what's really going on before we close on that deal? And do we have a plan going forward? And if the answer to either one of those is no, then that's a deal you walk away from. But a lot of times you can kind of figure out, what's really kind of going on, in this particular situation.
And
Let me see if we any other questions. Get your last minute questions in here if you've got any. DJ Daruma, how frequently do what things? Oh, the Q&As? I don't know if it's the Q&As that you're asking for, but we've got another one coming up next week, so we're doing Q&As all the time. Different people coming in here. Yeah, distributors talking up a spot to you. Yeah. Joe Dan Reed says, I always lowball brokers. Yeah. Oh, because one of his questions was, if we lowball offers, are brokers going to stop taking us seriously? And the answer to that is sometimes, yeah, actually, sometimes. But again, you're better off, and depends on what we mean by lowballing, I guess. If you're making an offer lower than the asking price, even significantly lower, but the numbers are backing it up, that's different than if, the analysis says it's worth 500,000 and you're trying to buy it for 250. Yeah, they're probably not going to take you seriously, which I have seen before. So
I always feel that if you have genuine money, if you have like genuine worthwhile cash enough to buy, no, this is a customer's economy. Nobody would be upfront rude to you. They would always deal with you, even if you lowball them sometimes because they want to make money. If you have enough cash, you'll end up making something money for them.
Yep. Awesome. I love what's happening here in the chat. First of all, Joe Dan, thanks for showing up. If you guys don't know Joe Dan Reed, go check out Splash Mount Laundry or Laundromats on YouTube. But there's some, Jed and who was that? Jed and somebody else connecting up on stuff there. So, question, which I think is a really good one. Yeah, Tim's backing you up right now, man. Way to go, Tim. Way to just back him up.
Thanks.
The laundry room team, Orlando's laundry room, says, how do you track retention or churn of our customers for pickup and delivery? Do you guys have that built in there?
Yeah. So what it's a simple formula if you would take it. So what we understand is when was the last date that person came in, and if he didn't come in for the next 90 days, then that guy is basically somebody who's about to churn or has churned. So you should be turning out or you should be trying to contact them. We choose 90 days, and like it can be different for somebody churn, like for in software products, somebody churn is 7 days, like if they are not there after 7 days or if they're not after there after a month. But in laundromats, and in slow businesses, I expected it to be, let's say, 60 days to 90 days. You could choose any of them. If they're not back, then there should be a communication to them. A, be back, or B, what did we do that you're not back? So A could be that they might just come back, you get the business back again. Or B is you might get a lesson on what has gone wrong, which probably it's very hard for somebody who's in the business to understand what's going wrong. Like it's the customer who's going to tell you what they don't like. It's going to be very hard for you to assume what's going to happen for the customer a lot of times. So listen to them, keep your I would say keep your eyes on the price at all times. One thing I would say is a lot of operators, and this might be true for me also as a business owner, I sometimes escape feedback. Like, it's hard to hear somebody tell you something which you don't want to hear. It's hard for you because you've put in a lot of heart, put in a lot of time and money into it. Like, and it's very, I think, it's very embarrassing sometimes. It's extremely disheartening sometimes. But these are the conversations that you grow from, your business grows from. So some people run towards this. They run towards getting more and more feedback about their stores, getting more and more people to talk about their stores. And anecdotally, I've seen such people growing much, much more faster, much, much more surer than people who are like, I don't want to put even my phone number in the store so that nobody could ever call me. And my calls would always go to a voicemail. So I would never get to see a live shouting match for me. So it's okay. It might be sometimes hard. It might be a bit hard on the heart, but I would say take this through and it would make you better. It would make your business better. It would make the customer experience better.
Yeah. DJ Daruma says the new lease that's being proposed as it increases every year for 10 years. For expenses, I'm counting the lease amount as the average across all 10 years out of right approach. So that increase is common. It's called an escalator. Usually it's around 2.5 or 3%, sometimes more than that. Sometimes it's it goes 3 or 5 years with no increases and then a bigger jump. It does all kinds of different things, but pretty common is 2.5 or 3% escalator. For your valuation, you can use the average across all 10 years. Typically what I'll do is I'll use the next year's amount as for the expense. And the reason for that is because that escalator clause is there to help the landlord keep up with inflation. That's the goal of the escalator clause, right? And so for us as business owners, we also should be keeping up with inflation. So beyond that first year, that's first 2 years or whatever, we should be assessing our pricing and raising our prices accordingly to help us keep up with inflation also. So that should, at the very least, stay in line kind of going forward. But that's how I handle that. Water usage. I think there's a water analysis spreadsheet on the site. And I believe there's a how-to somewhere on the YouTube channel. Sorry, I don't have the link, but somewhere on the YouTube channel, how to use that thing. But it's pretty self-explanatory, I think, also. This is a good. I'm going to throw that on the screen there. Just, from the seller's perspective. Yeah. Tim Richardson's got the free laundromat. LA Department of Water and Power needed $11,000 deposit. SoCal Gas needed $5,000. So yeah, there's a lot of, I'm sure the landlord needed a deposit. You want to have some running expenses. Also, yeah. How to go about buying the first time? Sorry. I'll let you, Sukanth, I'll let you chime in. If you're looking to buy for the first time, come to the webinar on Thursday. It's free Thursday. You can sign up on the website. We go through a lot of details on how to do that. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying, like, the comment was mentioning that they hate showing up their books and hate wasting their time. For a lot of operators who believe that this is going to be an exit for them, they should make it easier for them to have this exit too. Like, there is an art to buying a laundromat, but there's also an art to selling one. And the easier it is for anybody to verify your incomes, easier it is for you to map what's your growth percentage, the easier it is for you to push this on a spreadsheet for them. I think the more serious buyers you'll also get, because wherever there is vagueness, wherever there is confusion, it attracts more chaos, it attracts more bees than probably what it should have.
Yeah, for sure. And the easier you make it to see for the buyer to see the financials and the numbers, and the easier you make it to sell, actually the more valuable your business is and the more you can charge for it, because it becomes more easily financeable. It becomes a safer investment for the buyer, and that safety, the lack of risk, is actually worth real money. It's worth real dollars. And if you got two laundromats that are making $100,000 net each, and they're both asking $600,000 and one of them has super clean books, all the bank statements and the taxes match the P&L, and the other one doesn't, which one are you going to buy? Right? The one that's safer because it's more valuable, right? So there's actually real monetary value in having clean books and clean tax returns and clean bank statements. Not everybody, a lot of people don't run them that way, but I do think that they're leaving money on the table. Awesome.
You lose money on the sale. Like a lot of them end up losing money on the sale.
Yeah. Well, Sukanth, this has been awesome. Sorry for getting you up super duper early over there, but I appreciate you getting up and jumping on and answering questions galore and hanging out with us. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Like it's the right time to wake up. It's the right time to be in. And I would be in US in the September conference, Wash Dry Food conference. So would love to meet a lot of people. And when next there, would love to meet up with you, Jordan, also in California.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Real quick before we go, listen, if people are interested in starting to pick up and delivery or starting Wash Dry Fold or just increasing their business in that, and they want to check out Turns, where is the best place they can go to connect with you and learn more about Turns software?
So it's simple. Go to our Facebook page, Turns. Go to our LinkedIn page, Turns, or even on our website. It's called Turns App, TURNSAPP.com. And you would probably get a ton of information about all of our products. You would get a lot of real life case studies on how we've helped people and even more ideas. You can always schedule a demo, have a conversation with me or anybody in my team. And I'm very sure either we would learn something from you and we would also be able to pass you some of the information that we've gathered from hundreds of operators across the globe.
Awesome. Well, check out turnsapp.com. Check them out on Facebook or LinkedIn. Sukanth, again, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll have to do another one of these again soon. And hopefully we can connect in person when you're stateside again.
Thanks, Jordan. And thanks for everybody for attending. Got to learn so many new things. Always.
Yeah. Thank you guys for, as always, asking questions, but also for the interactions, which is always the best part of this whole thing, in my opinion, is you guys interacting in the chat there. So appreciate you guys sharing over there in the chat. Madison, you good?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Good to see you as well. And we'll see everybody on the next podcast, Q&A, webinar, whatever, something or other. Appreciate you guys.